Psalm 179. You have searched me, Lord, you know me. You know when I sit and when I rise. You perceive my thoughts from afar. You discern my going out and my lying down. You are familiar with all my ways. Before a word is on my tongue, you, Lord, know it completely. You hem me in behind and before, and you lay your hand upon me. Such knowledge is so wonderful for me, too lofty for me to attain. Where can I go from your spirit? Where can I flee from your presence? If I go up to the heavens, you are there. If I make my bed in the depths, you are there. If I rise on the wings of the dawn, if I settle on the far side of the sea, even there your hand will guide me. Your right hand will hold me fast. If I say, surely the darkness will hide me and the light become night around me, even the darkness will not be dark to you. The night will shine like the day, for darkness is as light to you. For you created my inmost being. You knit me together with my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in the secret place, when I was woven together in the depths of the earth. Your eyes saw my unformed body. All the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be. How precious to me are your thoughts, God. Amen.
Thank you. So, quick test. Lego movie trailer theme. Everything is awesome. Okie dokie, lovely. So, our 19 down primary children, they are doing some craft while we explore this idea of awesome. And essentially, they're going to be growing cress from little seeds. Have you ever thought about how absolutely awesome that is? That from tiny, dried up little structures, whole new plants grow. So we're going to think about this word awesome. What do you consider awesome? Did you consider it awesome when Thomas Williams ran up that pitch yesterday and scored a try between the goalposts? Seriously, have you ever been stopped by a beautiful view? Had your breath taken away as you looked up at the trees? Or perhaps the vastness of the night sky? Perhaps you've been transported by a soaring piece of music or a very charismatic person. If you have, you'll understand what the American author Steinbeck was writing about. When he was looking up the giant redwood trees in California, he's quoted as saying this: "They leave a mark or create a vision that stays with you always. From them comes silence and awe." So come on, audience participation. Some of you got your phones out, stop that. Let's get on with it. Give me some suggestions. What do you find awesome? A sunset, beautiful sunset. Anybody else? Newborn babies. Autumn, how appropriate. Snow. The sea crashing. So we've all got these different ideas of things that are awesome. Scientists have shown there's lots of benefits to being awestruck. It supposedly lowers our blood pressure, boosts our immune system. There's some evidence to suggest that it even makes us nicer people. Somebody's laughing. So what is this awesome? What does it mean to be in awe? So again, researchers have come up with a definition of it. A feeling we get when we experience something vast, which transcends our frame of reference, and we struggle to understand it. Awe combines amazement with an edge of fear, dissolving our very sense of self. So a question for us. Is this our response to God? Should it be our response to God? Should it be our response to God and the world he's created? And if it is, shouldn't we be trying to get a little bit more awe in our lives? There's a lot of awe running through the Bible. The Hebrew word that's used, yirah, and it's translated into several different aspects of awe in different places in the Bible. It translates into fear, respect, reverence of God or his works. And it implies the idea of trembling before the Lord. So like I said, it's used in many different places in the Bible. If we consider the narrative of Peter and John going to pray at the temple, when the people saw Peter heal the paralyzed man at the temple gate, they were filled with wonder and awe at what had happened to him. Similarly, we read in Luke chapter 4, when Jesus cast out a demon, again, people were in awe. We can go on. Luke chapter 5, when Peter's sent out to fish in deeper waters, and he gets an awesome bumper catch of fish. There was awe in that. We heard Jane read earlier from Psalm 139. How blooming awesome is that? That God created us. He knitted us together in our mother's womb. I started highlighting certain words in this psalm, and I found I wanted to highlight practically all of it. God saw our unformed body when it was being made. He knows everything about us before we were even born. This idea of awesomeness strikes me. I'm particularly interested, obviously, in living things. That's why I'm a biology teacher. And even Jesus encouraged his followers to be in awe of their own biology. Jesus said, even all the hairs on your head are numbered. Now, science tells us there's a staggering amount of information, instructions, if you like, in the end of each tiny hair in every cell of your body. We call that information DNA, and it contains the recipe for making life. Please don't fall asleep, okay? It looks very complicated. DNA, recipe for making life, looks a bit complicated if you haven't seen it before. Basically, it all boils down to the fact that DNA is made up of 4 different chemicals. Scientists abbreviate those 4 different chemicals to 4 letters, A, T, C, and G. Now, it's the order in which these chemicals come together that makes me, you, and, well, these strawberries. We are all made up, all living things made up of these same 4 chemicals. But it's the order in which they come together that makes us who we are. How awesome is that? 4, I know, 4. Guess how many? 4. 4 chemicals makes Pastor Mark, Mrs. Moody, and strawberries, and cress. Now, we're going to have a look at this chemical this morning. Unfortunately, we can't get DNA out of our cells. Health and safety is a bit boring and all the rest of it. So we're going to get some DNA out of strawberries. So if my helpers want to come back again, please. And I need some smaller helpers as well. We are going to extract some DNA from strawberries. So, in my little bags here, we have some extraction medium. Washing up liquid and salt to the rest of you. So, if you can pop a strawberry in there, who wants to come and help? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. God. Now, I don't know if you can see there, that is the DNA that's come from the strawberries. If a couple of you come down carefully, one of you go up one aisle, one of you go up the other aisle. It looks like candy floss. That is the DNA that's extracted from the strawberries. Wow. Oh my gosh. Now, funnily enough, it doesn't come out with an A, a T, a C, and a G on it. Just looks like candy floss. Right. Now, some of you are making some very polite noises and going, wow, that's impressive. You can sit down. But let's be honest, thank you very much. Let's be honest, it just looks like goop. I hate doing this practical in school because, God bless them, the kids come out thinking they're going to see DNA like a double helix, like my earrings, and it just looks like goop in a beaker, and they go, oh, thanks, miss. It's really unimpressive. But as I've said, it's that combination of how many chemicals? 4 chemicals. And it's all about the order in which they're put together that makes living things. How awesome is it that God made strawberries from something that looks like a bit of snot and made you and me from it as well? It's the order that's important of those 4 different chemicals. Now, it took a long time for scientists to work out the order in which all the A's and T's and C's and G's were put together to make humans. You might have heard of this project. It was called the Human Genome Project. It took a long time to work it all out, but it was finally finished in the year 2000. It was a momentous occasion. They'd finally worked out the sequence of these 4 chemicals that made a human. On the day of its publication, the then President, Bill Clinton, said, "Today we are learning the language in which God created life." Now, I don't subscribe to much else that Bill Clinton's ever said or done, but this is how I understand it, that we are learning the language in which God created life. And it's this sort of idea that I try and introduce to my students very subtly in college when I teach it. Now, the gentleman who was directing the Human Genome Project, Francis Collins, is a Christian. And we're just going to have a little look at a short excerpt of his testimony.
Well, in the home where I grew up, faith was not something that was talked about very much. My father was a professor of drama, my mother a playwright. When I went to college and those discussions in the dorm late at night about religion began to occur, I had no particular reason to attach value to a faith system. It had never been something I was familiar with or had internalized at all. I ended up in the medical school curriculum sitting at the bedside of patients with diseases. And one afternoon, one of my patients, a wonderful elderly woman, much like a grandmother, who had very bad heart disease. She had a particularly bad episode of chest pain while I was with her. She got through it, and at the end of that, explained to me how her faith was the thing that helped her in that situation. And after she finished her own very personal description of that faith, she turned to me, and I had been silent, and she looked at me quizzically, and she said, "What do you believe, doctor?" And ultimately, I had to admit to myself that her question had made me realize that I had arrived at an answer to the most important issue that we humans ever deal with. Is there a God? And I had arrived there without ever really looking at the evidence. And I was supposed to be a scientist. If there's one thing scientists claim they do is to arrive at conclusions based upon evidence. And I hadn't taken the trouble to do that. I thought Christ was as much myth as history, and I realized after reading more about it, this was a historical figure upon which we have a great deal of evidence for his existence and his teachings, and even his rising from the dead in a literal way. I realized for the first time that one can come to belief on a rational basis, a journey that I thought would result in strengthening my atheism, but to my surprise, resulted in my conversion.
Okay, so if the man who deduced the sequence of DNA in us is a Christian, surely that should help us get rid of the ridiculous notion that you can't be a scientist and a Christian. The more we learn, the more we should be in true awe of what science is revealing to us about God's creation. And harvest is the ideal time for us to reflect in God's awesome creativity and to look for opportunities to share this. I want to finish by showing you a card. I was given this card at the end of the last academic year. It was from a student who was just going off to university. I read the front and the inside when she gave it to me. I thanked her and off she went. I put the card on my desk, and it wasn't until a few weeks later I took it down and I noticed she'd written something on the back of it. I was going to say, I'll read it to you. I can't see it from there. So it says, through scripture, we can be comforted by knowing that God is faithful and always looking over us. And then she's gone on to say that studying biology has helped me strengthen my testimony by discovering the intricate and wonderful ways that this earth was created for us. Now, this wasn't a student I'd ever had a direct conversation about with faith. Yet, unbeknownst to me, teaching with respect for God's awesomeness can encourage people to see in creation, to see in plants and animals, just how great and awesome our God is.